Number 2, drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Safe.
Now you're more fluent.
He's got 3!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
What he's going to bring not only to our group, but to our room. Just a consummate pro. His ability to play hard minutes against top players, penalty killing ability. And then you go from there. The addition of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Oliver's got the ability to play both sides, left and right, moves the puck, competitive, long, can play on both specialty teams. Bringing him into the fold, I thought was we were excited about that. And then
welcome everybody to a brand new episode of the Leafs Lounge. I am Josh, and I would like to welcome in our brand new co-host, Caroline. Welcome to the Leafs Lounge.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. So for those of you who have tuned in before, teed this one up on Twitter that we have an exciting new co-host joining us on the Leafs Lounge. So she will be here and we will be here every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. So it is a new time for us. So very excited about it. Obviously, we are kind of just at the beginning of the off season, but we anticipate a lot of things to talk about, not just in the world of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but all NHL topics. And very happy to have Caroline join us. She has an amazing kind of refreshing perspective on the game. And she is actually Caro Toronto. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is her TikTok handle. If you don't already follow her, I definitely think you need to, because she is very funny, has a great perspective on the team and on hockey. A lot of great content. So she is a must follow. So check out her posts and follow along. And for myself, if you're not already following, I am Leafs Talk on TikTok. So between the two of our accounts, you can get everything you need from news and entertainment about the Toronto Maple Leaf team. So let's kind of get into it. Obviously, you saw in the intro, Brad Treliving, GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, in his media availability, doing a recap on what the Maple Leafs accomplished on July 1st. We will kind of take or do a deep dive on those signings. We'll give you our impressions on what the Leafs did. We will also talk about what other teams were either the biggest winners and which teams were the biggest losers on free agency. So a lot to get to. Caroline, not to put you on the spot, but is there any place in particular you would like to begin today?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Right?
I think we should look at what the Leafs did in free agency and then sort of inject how we feel about everything that's gone on, and maybe even look at what we could have done better.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so maybe let's talk about, I guess, the UFAs that were re-signed and maybe one RFA. So obviously, Joseph Woll re-signed to a 3-year extension.
We're going to start the goaltending.
Oh, you didn't want goaltending.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine with the goaltending. I just, it's a sore spot for me. You might be more optimistic.
I don't blame you.
Here, but
yeah, and I think that's what the audience will enjoy. I think we're probably going to have some differing views, different levels of faith or confidence in what the team did. So that is always what makes these conversations exciting. You don't ever want two Leaf fans agreeing with each other, because that just really shouldn't be how it goes.
Not many
every
do.
Leaf fan. No, exactly. And every Leaf fan thinks that they're an armchair GM or tries to be an armchair GM. So if everyone agreed, I don't think the Twitter discussions, TikTok chats, TikTok lives would be nearly as entertaining. So I love that you're coming with probably some very different perspectives than myself. So we can start, I guess, wherever you want in terms of those guys. But in terms of players they brought back. So Joseph Wall, Max Domi re-signed, RFA Timothy Liljegren also re-signed to 2 years. From those moves, anything you don't like, anything that was not expected, or any UFAs that they didn't bring back that you would have liked to see come back?
Well, I think if we're going to throw it back to goaltending, I have been hoping for a number one goalie in Leafs Nation for almost my entire life now. I think the first time I can remember they had a number one goalie was probably Felix Potvin. Would you agree with that? When was their last number one? Maybe Ed Belfour?
Yeah, you'd have like Ed Belfour, Cujo. Can't forget Cujo.
That's true, Cujo. I think I went way too far back with Felix.
No, I mean you weren't that far off. You weren't that far off. But yeah, there was. But again, the Curtis Joseph and Belfour were here. I think Joseph maybe 3-4 years. Belfour was like 2 years. So it's not like these guys were with the team for a long time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely not far off on there. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I know that the trend in the NHL has been not necessarily investing in a number one goalie. Like we've seen a lot of very successful teams, Stanley Cup champions, win without that number one goalie. Right. Aiden Hill, Colorado.
Yep.
Bobrovsky, definitely a number one, but maybe not in that upper echelon of goalies.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Edmonton almost won with a guy who no one thought was good enough.
Skinner, definitely not somebody that people had in that conversation. So I think GMs are really leaning into that they don't need a number one goalie, that it's almost like parity. You want a strong team throughout. That seems to be what's in trend in hockey right now. But you know what? When we've front loaded our team so hard with the core four and invested so heavily in forwards, there is, and sort of until this free agent period, neglected our D-man. We needed a good goalie.
Yeah, big time.
We did. And so sure, we have prioritized defense during this free agent period, but I think the fact that we haven't had a goalie in sort of my whole Leafs fandom career is something that may have held us back. And here we are trying the same thing again.
Sure.
And what do they say about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So
is the definition of insanity. And I agree with that. And I think I totally see where some fans are coming from that, okay, you've got the injury concern with Joseph Wall, who we just re-signed to 3 years. And then you've got a guy in Anthony Stolarz, who was probably one of the best, if not the best available free agent goalie. But
after certain signings happened, right?
Correct.
Markstrom was off the free agent market. And
he got traded, right?
Sorry, he got traded. Yes, he got traded.
Yeah, he was a trade. So in terms of UFAs, Stolarz was probably one of the best ones. You could argue him, Laurent Brossoit, Cam Talbot, but all those guys would be in the same category that you weren't going to find a guy who's won a Vezina trophy in free agency. So that was not going to happen. So I think a lot of Leaf fans are like, well, yeah, I still don't feel our goaltending is good enough. But at the same time, what were the options? You know, you could obviously overpay for a goalie in a trade. Jacob Markstrom, I think, was an okay price for New Jersey to pay. But I'm not sure I would feel that much more confident with him over a Joseph Wall and a Anthony Stolarz. And I might just be drinking the Kool-Aid, and you're probably thinking that exact thing right now, that, oh, he really thinks these guys can do it. But to your earlier point, I think there's
at least someone in this chat is.
I think to your point, I think there's like a lack of guys that you would call elite goaltenders, and those guys aren't available. Like, you're not getting, even if you think Bobrovsky is an elite goalie, and I guess when you win a cup, people will call you an elite goalie, but you could probably name on 1-2 hands at most those elite goalies in the NHL, and they're not available. They're not available. No one's trading them.
That's true, because their GMs have had the wherewithal and the forethought to lock them up, whereas our GMs seem to put that on the back burner for some reason again and again and again and again.
Yeah, because as long as you have two great or four great offensive forwards, that's all you need, right?
Fine, right?
That's the formula. Clearly,
absolutely, it works, right?
run it back.
Let's run it back one more time.
Yeah, I'm just seeing on the comment, because we're kind of probably going to move on to forwards from Garp. Why aren't the Leafs making more moves to their forward group? I think that's a very valid question. And I would think that after addressing defense and goaltending in free agency, that's exactly what Brad Treliving will probably target. Now, not many free agent forwards are sitting there that will make themselves available or could really move the needle. So I think if he's going to do anything with the forward group, it's going to come via trade.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So I think kind of looking at, let me just post up kind of where the Leaf lineup looks today.
Oh, great. You queued this up. Perfect.
And then let me see if I can get us here too. There we go. So here's kind of today depth chart. You can kind of argue as much as you want about the actual lines. I don't think there's much need to do that right now. This is coming from the Daily Face-Off website. So D pairings would be Riley Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Timothy Liljegren, McKay Benoit. You got your goaltending tandem of Woll and Stolarz.
Just to interject, I haven't seen this yet, and I'm looking at our D, and I'm like, hey, this looks pretty good.
Not bad, right?
Yeah. I predicted these pairings in my head, but now that I'm seeing it in front of me, I'm like, hey, not bad.
And the guy that we were making fun of the name or saying that that's like such a hockey name, Yanni Hakanpää. He's not even here. But
he's always going to be injured. Just get used to that.
Yeah, we don't even know if he's on the team. Like, it's like such a weird thing. Like, from the actual Maple Leaf account, their Instagram, TikTok account, they haven't officially announced that signing yet.
Right. You're right. I haven't seen that Hakanpää signed or obviously not extended, but they've been slow to the mark on some of those posts. Have you noticed that?
Very. But everything now, like, they're caught up on everything, every other signing except for Hakanpää.
So what do you think that could mean? Are they just slow to post it? Their social media managers snoozing, or are they?
It could be that. It definitely could be that. I think more likely there might be more of a concern than maybe Brad Treliving communicated in his media availability on his ability, like talking about Hakanpää, his ability to actually be able to play next year. I hope that's not the case, obviously.
I don't know if we addressed it, but it sounds like he's getting some pretty extensive knee surgery.
Yeah.
And that he might, like Josh said, might not even make the roster might not be able to be eligible to be on the roster next season.
Right. Which is very scary. And so far, no one's really talking about that or really, providing much of an update. Every Leaf fan's top journalist, Steve Simmons, favorite journalist, is the only guy that came out with anything on that. And he basically said that, from his previous team, Hakanpää, Dallas, they kind of figured he wouldn't play hockey again. Now, I don't know if that's actual verbatim or where he's getting that from, but that's what he kind of reported. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but he was basically insinuating that most teams, including Dallas, his former team, did not actually think he would be able to, I don't know if he'd have to retire because of it, but that his availability, at least for next year, would be a question mark.
Well, on Twitter and TikTok, a lot of people were saying the contract was a steal. Like, it was a bit of a gamble, but 1.5 for 2 years.
Yep. With
his ceiling is pretty good. He blocks a lot of shots. He's a big body. He's very capable playmaker. PK. I actually had some Dallas Stars fans message me, like one of the 20, I think. I'm just joking. But
you got to be careful. I mean, we've got 3 people tuning in. I'm sure at least 2 of them are Dallas Star fans. I'm sure of it.
And they said how much they'll miss him. So I guess the effect that he has when he is playing is palpable. Yep. But if he's not eligible to play, off to Robida Island for the Leafs,
right.
Stomach we can stomach those payments. Maybe a team like the Stars wants to get those payments off their payroll.
Yeah, it kind of calls into question, like, did the Leafs really not check in on that? I mean, I know with free agent signings, they come quickly. Well, I think all of them do. I think all of them do kind of, it just before the signing is made official, they get information from that player's team or previous team's doctor. So they kind of have their medical team collect all that information, but you obviously don't have the time to do a actual physical. So I don't know how deep they go. Other
it is
than
Texas. I bet Tanev and Hakanpää were bribing that doctor a little bit.
maybe
There's some bribes. You know,
maybe.
they both got a pretty good contract, decent term for Hakanpää, great term for Tanev. Like, you know, it is the Wild West, so I don't think we can put them.
No, it's very true. And I think at least at like 1.5 for Hakanpää, if it ends up being that he's not available for, I don't know, the first few months of the year and you need to put him on LTIR, not the end of the world, but it would be kind of odd if they went all the way to signing this guy and he's not even available come training camp. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. But to your point, to our points earlier, the defensive pairings as they look right now, not bad.
Not bad. Improved. For sure improved, because if you look at it, it's basically Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and whatever. Let's include Hakanpää in discussion for now. It's those three guys essentially over Ilya Lyubushkin, Joel Edmondson, and TJ Brody. TJ Brody. Everyone's favorite whipping boy. So I'm not really thinking anyone should have concern over whether this defense is better than what we ended the year with, but is it good enough? Is it good enough to make the Leafs a cup contender? I say no, but it's an improvement.
I'm not going to argue on that, but I think what we can say is that Tanev, the Leafs have been vying for that right-handed shot to pair with Riley for a long, long time.
No doubt.
Tanev brings a culture of grittiness. He blocks shots. He'll block shots on his face. That famous clip. We should have queued that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the hope is that his play and his mentality towards the game will trickle down and could influence a lot of the other players on the team. So 100%. I'm excited to see Tanev. You got to hope for health with him for sure. It is a bit of a gamble. But as I heard today on Kipper and Bourne, Matthews, his contract's 4 more years.
Correct.
Tanev, he's 34 right now. If we can get 4 good years out of him, that's all we need, right? Like, we'll pay those extra years. We'll send him off to Robidas Island, LTIR.
Exactly.
But the 4 next years are really what's most crucial for the Leafs. And so, he's tough. He's maybe too tough to hope for that many years out of him.
If you're trying to block every shot with your face, you would think it wouldn't provide an opportunity to have a long career. But credit
Josh,
to
you don't
him.
Need your face to play hockey, though.
No, you typically don't. As long as your hands and feet work, you're usually pretty okay. You can keep going. Yeah.
But I think he'll add a nice oomph to our power play. PK, is he going to be on the top power play unit, do you think?
No, I mean, Chris Tanev doesn't really give you too much offensively. So he's going to be your 5-on-5, your shutdown kind of D-man against the opposition's top players, top line. He'll be your first PK D pair. I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson would be a guy who has a chance to get on the power play. Yeah,
I actually saw today that OEL would be, if he's on the Leafs lineup last year, he would have generated the second most amount of offense if he were a Leaf. So Riley had 9 goals last season. I forget how many goals he had, but he had 32 points, and so he is definitely going to be that on the first or second power play unit. Yeah. And be interesting to see how he does in Leafs Nation.
For sure. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people, both Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tanev, there's obviously a lot of people discouraged with the amount of term these guys got. But I think that's more just your typical complaints from Leaf fans on like, oh, like, I can't believe that's what they gave him. How did he get 6 years? He's 34 years old. Like, if you take a look around the NHL, some of the money that was handed out, some of the term,
The
like, it was pretty
Predators,
wild.
right? The
Preds,
Predators.
yeah. Stamkos got
Jeez.
$8 million over 4 years. Like, the Leafs aren't the only one who felt a need to give more term to bring the AAV down. And I think the fact that they're getting Tanev at only 4.5 mil, to me, yeah, I'd be worried about those last 2 years of the contract, what you're going to get. But I mean, you brought it up. You got Austin Matthews signed for 4 more years. That to me is your window to win. If they haven't won in that 4 years, like, I really don't care if we're still paying Tanev while we're like not even a playoff team anymore, or we're not as much of a contender. At that point, you kind of already, it obviously failed. Whatever you were trying to do between Kyle Dubas and kind of building around that core, and then Brad Treliving trying to, maintain and kind of run it back with the core, but adding in some grit and physicality, that won't work either. If that's where we're at after 4 years, it's a write-off anyways. You got to blow it up at that point no matter what.
For sure.
So I'm not too worried about what happens after that 4 or 5 year mark.
Yeah, I think that these next 4 years is very make and break for our franchise, and it'll also be a future case study in investing in offense in the long term. I think investing in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think everyone I think right now, most of the other fans around the NHL have already kind of determined that the way the Maple Leafs are doing it cannot work, will not work.
Oh, yeah.
I think you got a lot of Leaf fans that are probably taking some inspiration from the run that Edmonton had and being like, well, hold on, like, that's a team that doesn't have an elite goalie.
Edmonton, I would
say.
Say.
Like, and I get where that's coming from. The only problem is McDavid and Draisaitl happen to be a lot better than our top 2 guys. They've got a guy named Evan Bouchard, who is a lot better than our top guy, Morgan Rielly. So it's not apples to apples, but it is kind of a similar build. So I think some Leaf fans are optimistic that, keep Mitch Marner, like, keep everyone together. These guys are too talented to give up. So no issue there. You just got to figure out the right players to bring in. But easier said than done.
Is that a good segue into discussing Mitch Marner, the Mitch Marner situation?
I think it is. I
don't think we can have a Leafs podcast without talking about Marner.
No, you absolutely can't, especially right now until we get, anything definitive from Brad Treliving. Because right now, like, I don't know if you've seen his media availabilities, but whenever the question comes around to Mitch Marner, it's always deflections, right? He doesn't want to commit to signing him. Like, he's going as much away from that level of, commitment or communication. It's not like, we think Mitch Marner is going to be a Leaf for the rest of his career. We're motivated to signing him. Just can't give you a timeline. There isn't anything like that. It's more of the, we're not going to really talk about that. Mitch Marner's a great hockey player. And he kind of ends it at that. So
I think that might be because they don't want the fan fodder to sort of snowball or even make it to the gate. Like, they know what the fan sentiment is around Marner right now. People don't like him. And it seems to me that the way they're gatekeeping information about Marner is actually just trying to suppress his name from the media, from discussion.
I agree.
In an effort to preserve Marner. Like, I think he's staying. Don't think they've made any traction on, if they ever were trying to, gently push him out of town. I don't think that's working. And the way that they're keeping his name out of articles and comments is so that fans can't latch onto anything. And
no, 100%.
They may as well keep the environment somewhat not hostile for him if they can.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I think that's what's happening. think Mitch Marner is going to be a Leaf, definitely. Hopefully we can deal him before he walks for nothing at the end of by July 1 next season. But I think that's where I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we're going to be able to get him out this summer? Sorry, get him out. Do you think we'll move him this summer?
That sounds harsh, Caroline. Can we get him out?
Get him out.
How do we get him out?
My bias showing a little bit.
Yeah, I think you showed your cards there, Caroline. We know where you're at, clearly.
Excuse me.
No, I mean, I think for me, and I've kind of talked about this on previous episodes, but like, for me, I guess there's the three obvious scenarios, right? For me, my preferred scenario would be a trade. And I think a lot of Leaf fans are completely against that. That would not be their preferred option because they don't think you can win a Mitch Marner trade, which I do agree with. You're not going to trade because I don't think you can trade Mitch Marner for a player that can impact the game more. You're not going to find a guy who will be more productive.
I disagree. I think what we get is cap space. We want cap space more than we want Mitch Marner at this point, I think.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think more where I was going is you're not going to win that trade on paper. Like if you're looking at getting, like improving your team just through that one transaction, I don't see how it can happen in just that one trade of Mitch Marner. That's more where I was going there. But
I totally agree with that. That's for sure. But the fans that are following the team and following the cap space, they'll know. I think it'll be a trade for a savvy fan. That'll be the fans that are really happy about it.
Right.
It's the Mitch Marner fan club boys and girls.
The fan boys.
He has a cult of fans.
Yeah. Well, I think every good Leaf player does. Like definitely Nylander has like such an unbelievable faction of fans that are just like, they will defend him no matter what he does. Like he can put the puck in his own net 2 or 3 times in a game. And it's like, yeah, but he's still like our best playoff performer. If you look at these stats and these analytics, like they will defend him to no end, you know? And Mitch Marner, same way. And I think it's kind of like just a product of Leaf fanhood where they just get so attracted and almost like obsessed with players who wear the Leaf jersey and they just won't let go. Like they'd almost prefer to see the team be competitive, but not a true contender, but keep Mitch Marner. And it's like, do you not see the potential benefit of, to your point, freeing up that cap room, maybe getting draft capital, and then using that as a way to upgrade your team? Like, yeah, you're not going to get Mitch Marner. You're not going to trade Mitch Marner for a Roman Josi or a Quinn Hughes. We recognize that trade is not available.
Are you hearing this? Where have you read that? I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. If that trade is offered, sure. I think there would already be a trade done if Marner was willing to waive his no movement. But we know that's not going to happen. So if you could get a combination of cap room, draft capital, maybe a young up-and-coming prospect, maybe at least someone that can come into your top 9 forward group, because as we see here, the forward depth is not that great. So if you could get that in a Mitch Marner trade, I think fans just have to jump on board with the idea that what has been, you know, what they have been trying to do up until now clearly hasn't worked. If you have any kind of bar for what success for a team looks like, you have to acknowledge it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So why keep trying it again?
I know. I agree.
Right? And you're going to be paying these guys more. Like, it's not like you can like bring Mitch Marner back at the same price he's been at, same cost he's been at, or cheaper. He's going to want close to what Matthews is getting, more than what Nylander got.
He's getting. Yeah.
At least. And I would be shocked if he took even what Nylander's getting.
And if you remember, I agree. I think he won't take Nylander money. But if you remember when he was originally signing his contract, I think after his, correct me if I'm wrong, his ECL, there was that massive hiatus, right? Like he was not able to play for several months, because I think his camp, including his father, who, if you haven't already seen the Paul Marner videos when Marner's growing up, just like screaming bloody murder. They're epic. Like, these should be Canadian heritage moments.
If you want to know what a hockey dad looks like, the extreme, Paul Marner. Paul Marner.
Yeah. Paul Marner is not going to take any hometown discount talk. He's not going to, leave anything on the table for the Leafs. Marner his golden boy is getting the biggest, best contract he can get. And sure hope it's not with the Leafs.
Yeah. And I think a lot of fans just don't like that kind of viewpoint, because they think like, well, why would you trade a guy who's talented? Why would you trade a player who can put up 100 points for you? And for me, the crazy thing is like you look around the league, like how much backlash are the Tampa Bay Lightning getting for saying, hey, you know what? Stamkos, a guy who, the facts are the facts. He's won a couple Stanley Cups there.
Yep.
He's been their, face of the franchise since he's gotten there, since he's been drafted. Yeah. And they basically came to the conclusion that, hey, in order for us to remain competitive and keep our window open, we cannot do it by paying Stamkos. Maybe they could have got a little bit of a discount on him, but based on what the Preds paid him,
Stamkos wanted to stay. And
100% he did. But Tampa said, well, we don't care.
Did you hear Julian Brees'
we want Guentzel
conference? Did you hear?
I saw some of it.
Yeah, the Tampa GM, Julian Brees, he actually went out and he said, basically apologized to Tampa fans. Okay. He said he knows that Stamkos has been a beloved and, central member of the franchise for, I think, 16 years. Is that right?
Sounds about right. Yeah. Started when he was like 18. He's 34 now and around there. Yeah.
He actually took responsibility for not being able to get it done. He said, I'm sorry.
I didn't hear that.
He did. Okay. And I think it's because, he took responsibility. But I think that there's a little bit more to that. I think that there could have been different ways that they could have structured a contract to make it work. And at the end of the day, it's a tough league. Cap hockey is a different beast. And I think this might trickle down and influence some other decisions that GMs make in the future. Like, this guy was the franchise. He was the captain. Hedman's best friend. Hedman had a very heartfelt statement about losing his best friend.
Saw that. Yeah,
that was sweet. I didn't realize Hedman was so personable. To be honest.
You don't really. He's a very soft-spoken guy. So you don't really hear from him too often. But for me, seeing Victor Hedman basically re-sign, I don't know, about a half hour after Stamkos left, kind of proves the point. But it proves the point that players on teams recognize that it is a business, and it's not like Hedman said, oh, you're going to trade Stamkos? Well, I'm not going to sign my contract. I want out. They probably recognize that, that kind of is what needs to happen eventually. It's not very common where you see the same core group coming back year after year. It actually doesn't happen anywhere except for Toronto. All the other teams move on. You look at what Vegas has done. Vegas said goodbye to Jonathan Marchessault. They said goodbye to Chandler Stevenson, guys that helped them win a cup. We, as fans in Toronto, and I don't put myself in this group, but the general Leaf fan base just feels like, well, you can't just get rid of these guys. They like playing here. But yet every other NHL front office says, I get it. But hey, if the grass is greener on the other side, if you can tell me I can get Jake Guentzel, who's probably the younger version of Stamkos, and maybe even offers a little bit more.
That's a high price.
I think so. You're not a Jake guy. You're not a fan of Jake Guentzel?
No, I'm a huge Jake guy. I think he's a beast in the playoffs, and I think he's a sweet, nice blonde boy, somewhat like Stamkos. But he's not going to grow into a Stamkos. He's a what's the word? A supporting actor. I think Stamkos.
Ooh, Guentzel supporting actor. Well, Stamkos in his prime, I will definitely give you that. Stamkos in his prime, better than Guentzel. But I think where you have Guentzel right now from a
for sure. I would way prefer Guentzel right now.
He's definitely a more impactful player at this point in his career than Stamkos is right now. And that, to me, is a business decision that Tampa Bay made. Obviously, if Guentzel was not an option, maybe they find a way to bring Stamkos back, right? But it just feels like...
I think so. I think Stamkos wanted term, and they didn't see him fitting into their future, and that's where those discussions ended. And
I heard they were offering him like an 8-year deal, but like $2 million AAV or something. They were going to give the guy the term.
I think $8 million.
He got $8 million times 4 from Nashville.
That's huge for Stamkos.
I think Tampa just wanted to keep the money down. They wanted to keep the overall money down, but they were okay with giving him, I guess, term, but knowing that those final years would probably just be scrapped somehow. It was very weird.
Yeah, very interesting. Maybe this is a segue into who we think won free agency.
Yep, we can do that for sure.
Or have we talked about that tangentially a little bit here?
No, I think that's a good place to go.
I'll let you call the next shot here.
You want me to tee it up with the free agency winners and losers? Yeah,
we didn't talk about this beforehand, so I sure hope you don't take my answers.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of the risk you take, Caroline, by turning it over to me first. So you can't name the same teams as me now. You're going to have to get creative.
Take my answer for sure.
Okay, so for me, the top 2 teams that I think won free agency would be Nashville and the Boston Bruins.
Okay, I can work with that.
Agree?
I agree with Nashville.
Yep.
I do agree with Nashville. I think you got to give a very honorable mention to the Capitals.
Capitals did well. Well, the Capitals also made like trades, right? Like in terms of like they added Pierre-Luc Dubois in a trade. They added Jacob Chychrun in a trade. Logan Thompson in a trade. So
so you're very right there. These
no, but I think it's fair. Like it's more semantics. But if I can be technical here, it was not a true free agent winner.
I agree. I had Nashville as my number 1, but we're taking different points, right?
Yeah. I don't think you can argue against the Preds. I think they basically signed 3 of the top 5 free agents on TSN's board. So,
very
you got to crown them.
I think one interesting point is that 12 months ago, they shipped Barry Trotz out and they brought in David Boyle. Boyle. And so I think, people were speculating what's the future of the franchise look like?
Yeah.
And still maybe with a new GM, there's going to be changes, shifts. No, they're hammering down that road to the cup.
They're going for it.
They're always biting at it. They're always like first round, second round performers.
Yeah, I think they've always overachieved, they haven't really had the talent that you would like, even like last year. I don't think anyone would have thought they'd get into the playoffs and then they make it and almost got by Vancouver, right? They played tough, competitive. Yeah. But this is impressive what they've done.
Totally impressive. So not only were they able to obviously get Stamkos and Marchessault, but locking up Saros for 8 years.
Saros.
Who saw that coming?
I did not, because they have that young goaltending prospect, Askarov, I think, and they seem pretty high on him. So I don't know what's going on there. I was kind of shocked with that. Saros is a good goalie.
Yeah.
I just thought that, paying him whatever he got, what was it, 8 mil or just below AAV? I think he got around like 7.75.
I think he got 8.
In around there?
You're right. Yeah.
8.
I think he got 8 for 8.
Wow.
But I'm not clear on the AAV, but it's definitely 8 years.
Yeah, it's for sure around there. I can actually just Cap Friendly pull it up quickly.
When does Cap Friendly go away, by the way? It's got to be this week.
It's July 5th. I think on Friday it goes dark.
2 more days.
Yeah. So you have to do all your
acquisition by the Capitals. that
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? If you include cap friendly, then I will agree with you that Washington won free agency. That's a good point. You got to add that to their portfolio of moves for sure. Yeah, so
Really?
Saros is at 7.7.
Okay, so we were both
Yeah.
right if we said 7 and 8.
Yeah,
Pretty
we were in the
similar.
ballpark.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. So Barry Trotz took over the Preds from David Poullier. My bad.
Correct.
But, either way, I don't know that people were expecting them to put such a throttle down during free agency.
No,
And
I
here we
can't
are.
imagine they saw that coming. That was pretty
Yeah.
crazy, pretty wild.
I think it's because Nashville is such a attractive place to play. Like it's
Yeah.
becoming the new New York. Have you been to Nashville?
I have once, yeah. Very short trip. It was like a 2-night trip, but fun place for sure.
Like it's fun.
Really fun.
It's fairly affordable. It's not a market that you're going to be a star in, but you're not going to be a star in. It'll be a fan destination to travel to. Like,
And there's no state tax.
there's very favorable tax situation.
Yep.
Country music, beer, a lot of fun in Nashville. Like I
Ryan
can see
O'Reilly and Luke Shen clearly think so.
Ryan O'Reilly. That was another big thing that they did last season. But yeah,
Yep.
I think that I get it. Like players used to love New York. They used to love LA. Some like Toronto, but Nashville is becoming this like unsung hero.
Destination,
like,
hotbed.
Underdog. Yeah.
Well, and I think players, and it's not really a shock, but players also like their money.
Yeah.
They also like their money. So
Yeah.
places like Nashville, Florida, Vegas, you can
Right.
see by the contracts that these clubs are giving out. Like I think Florida just signed Nate Schmidt, a defenseman who played on Winnipeg. Like he's not an elite defender by any stretch, but he's probably a solid, second pairing D-man on most teams.
Yeah.
And Florida signed him for 1 year at $800K. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow.
Like he wouldn't have signed that contract anywhere else. But
That's a
I
really
guess-
interesting point. You don't really see anything under 950. Okay.
Usually not. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think the min is around like 725 or 750. So he
Yeah,
basically took
yeah.
a minimum contract just to
Wow.
play in Florida. I mean, who knows? Maybe there were no other offers, but I got to think he could have got more than 800K.
This is a side discussion, but do you think that the cap should be adjusted for markets that have such favorable tax brackets like that?
I do think it should be, but I know it won't be. I know
Why
it won't be.
won't it be?
I just think it's like, I mean, in any sport that has a cap, you kind of deal with the same thing where you obviously have your markets that either have a more favorable tax
don't think that's
situation or no
fair.
state tax. No?
No.
You don't think there's comparables with like the NBA where you
Oh,
have.
I agree. You're completely right, but I don't think it's fair.
Oh, it's totally not fair. It's totally not fair. I just don't see the leagues doing anything about it. But for sure, Florida and Tampa, Vegas, Nashville, they should have a lower cap. But I just don't see it happening. But it is an unfair advantage completely.
And I think that markets that are disadvantaged in terms of, like, I think markets that are continually appearing on players' no trade lists, like that is also unfair. Like poor Winnipeg. You got to feel for Winnipeg. Not so
Calgary,
much anymore. Calgary, Ottawa. Oh,
yeah.
like those
well, and I think
guys
that will
get-
be like it will be a good segue when we get into our losers of free agency because it is all those smaller market teams.
Absolutely.
Some of them can in Canada where they're not going to be able to compete.
And that
like
makes
if they're-
sense. They're vying for the same people, like the same free agents that other teams are. And they're the ones that are ultimately making the decision, the free agents.
Yeah.
So,
and now, I mean, you look at it, obviously a market like Toronto, maybe even Vancouver, they have those advantages
in
where they can say,
maybe
Montreal
we can throw that in
sure.
there.
Assuming they ever get to a point where free agents view them as a potential contender in the coming years. But once they get to that point, I agree. I would throw the Canadians in there. But Toronto has the ability to put a lot more money in their players' pockets. Like, you don't have to watch much of a TV show or a movie before you see Austin Matthews plugging Uber Eats or Mitch
Totally.
Marner. You know, they're all
Yeah.
over the place. You got Nylander doing his Rogers TTC
Great
commercials.
point.
So I don't know if it balances. It probably does not with the more favorable tax locations, but there is a number that you can find with those free agents and say, yeah, I get it. Florida's offering you 8 mil. So you think you need to get 11 or 12 here, but how much more money do you stand to make by these type of commercials? Like John Tavares also does like a lot of different campaigns and marketing ads, commercials. So
I don't see him as much, but I guess so. I would
he was
obviously
doing
got stuff.
what, did you not see that very flattering ad he did for Lululemon?
No. Oh, I'd love to see that.
I think it was probably a couple years back. He was wearing like the weirdest jacket, like this bright red jacket that John Tavares would never actually wear.
Yeah.
But
no.
I guess
the guy
he's
wears
like,
new to neutral for sure.
yeah, he has black, gray, and blue in his closet. Nothing more.
For sure.
Nothing more.
Yeah.
But I think that's also like 80% of men. So, you know.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But that could be the next cap friendly is when they start bringing in the value of endorsements plus the value, there could be a new algorithm that somebody cooks up.
Yeah.
And it
for
helps
sure.
calculate the salary that you'll get from not the team.
Yeah, like finding out what your true take home is after taxes, plus all your kind of any sponsorships you have. Because, like that has to be factored in. And I don't think people kind of appreciate how much you could get in Toronto through that compared to probably 25 of the other 31 markets, where if you're a Mitch Marner, you're William Nylander. If you're playing in, I don't know, Columbus, if you're playing in Buffalo, if you're playing in San Jose, like, you might get one kind of company saying, hey, can you plug this product, this protein supplement, energy drink? You might get one of those, but you're getting one of those for every 3 you get in Toronto.
I completely agree. I just wanted to add, this is sort of throwing it back, but apparently the Montreal Canadiens made a very pleaful offer to Marchessault, who is a nice Quebecois boy. Offered him a lot of money, offered him like all the flowery things, and unfortunately he had to turn that down. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I was like going, where it's like, I don't think the Canadians are one of those top destinations because they're not there yet.
Competitive, they would be a more favorable destination, but they're so far from competitive right now, I think.
No, for sure. Like they've committed to that core, which they have some talent there, but I don't think any of those guys really like punch you in the face with, I could see Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. And I know Habs fans will keep reminding us of what happened in 2021, but
what was that? With, of course, Cup final.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that. I don't even remember what happened, to be honest. I forgot about it already.
I literally think I blacked out from that period.
Well, it was happening during the pandemic, so no one was paying attention.
Yeah. Of course. I know. The bubbles.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, it didn't really count, but Canadian fans might not agree with that. I don't know.
A lot of Leaf fans or non-Leafs fans would say the 67 Cup win didn't count because there's only 6 teams in the league. So.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The chirp that we always hear is we haven't seen a third round ever.
I love that chirp. I hate that chirp.
It's pretty good. When
we do break through to the third round, that will be huge.
Yeah. And not if or when, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Got to be when. Yeah.
I mean,
okay. So how about we go to the losers of free agency? Do you have 2 teams that kind of stood out to you?
Well, I think the Jets, they got fleeced a little bit.
Bad. Yeah.
Had a few. I think the Hurricanes, unfortunately,
You named the 2 I had. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. On the board, Caroline has the dub on that one for sure. Yeah, I think those are the two obvious ones for me. And then I'd put like Vegas in there as well because they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, they didn't actually hit my radar. So
no, I say they didn't do anything because they're figuring out a trade for Mitchell Marner.
Let's hope so.
Right?
Well, they did lose.
There's no way Vegas isn't doing anything. They've been the most aggressive team since they've got their franchise. I don't see them saying, okay, we'll give up Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson. And I guess we're just open the year with this team. There's no way. I think they got something cooking.
Very interesting.
They have something good.
They push the cap to the limit. They're not going to just lie down and have all this extra cap space. Like
they're going to figure something out.
They're cooking.
And obviously, this isn't only coming from me. I think Vegas has been the team that has been most frequently connected with a possible Mitch Marner trade.
And Utah, apparently, according to your guy last week.
The Utah rumor was was making its rounds on Twitter. I don't see that one happening anymore.
I don't really
see
either.
Marner. I don't see Paul approving for his boy to go to Utah.
Really? Why not?
I don't know. Like, I don't think Utah would, be that appealing destination.
Coyotes. That might help us think about why not. Like, they are the Coyotes.
Potentially. I think Utah offers more appeal than obviously Arizona did, just because they were basically a poverty franchise.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. But Utah actually did quite a few big moves. They made some trades at the draft. So it looks like their owner is obviously willing to shell out the cash to build a good team. So I think they would have an interest in Marner. I just can't see Mitch Marner having any other teams aside from a big market. So I'm thinking it's Vegas, it's LA, it's New York, it's Chicago.
Exactly.
I almost think those are the only four.
And part of me can just so see Marner in Vegas. I don't know what it is.
Whether
it's his like dancing shoes or his like it's a bit of he loves
a kook. He's a kook.
That's for sure.
Call it like it is.
Yeah, I could see him in Vegas in a heartbeat. I think of any team in the league that I could see him in. It's Vegas, which is
well, he's also still a younger guy. I know he just got married, but he doesn't have kids. I think if you're a little bit older and maybe family guy, probably Vegas isn't your first choice. Not to say no player with a family would have gone there or has. There obviously are guys, but I would think for some kind of more older veteran players with kids might be a harder discussion. But for a guy like Mitch Marner, why not? Why not?
He'd love that place.
He would tear it up. He would tear it up there.
Speaking of Vegas, how cool was the draft in the Sphere?
Unreal.
Jeez. I think the NHL unlocked a new venue for sport events like that. And we're gonna we win. Like NHL wins.
NHL was the first one there.
We were the first ones there. It was so cool.
It was amazing. Yeah, I think the UFC already has a planned event there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm dying to go to that Sphere.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks very cool, unbelievable. It was a great weekend. The draft there, just like great eye candy, great theater, just seeing all the aesthetics and everything. The visual is very impressive.
Absolutely agree.
Let me just see what topics we haven't got to yet. One thing maybe we can talk about, I guess in terms of after all these changes, adds that the Maple Leafs have made in free agency, where would you kind of put them in terms of the Atlantic Division contenders? Do you put them right at the top? Do you put them in the middle? Where are you at there?
Oh, that's a tough question, which I should have prepared for, but I didn't. I think we're always going to be in the top third of the Atlantic, which is not saying a whole lot.
No.
I don't know. Did the Atlantic needle really? I think it actually did move. Boston did a lot. The Lightning did a lot. I'm more scared of the Lightning for some reason now.
Okay.
than I was.
Prior to free agency?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we had them solved. I think we'd figured them out, and I think that Julien Brisebois, their GM, sort of looked around and was like, "These are the teams we need to crack. It's Boston and it's Toronto," and they made the moves that they thought would help that cause.
I actually really I dig that perspective from you. The Leafs win one round in like 20 years, and you're like, yeah, we've got them figured out. There's one team and one team only, but yeah, we've got them figured out. We have their number. We beat them once.
Also, there was a lot of fan math. Like, a lot of fans were cooking before the first round playoff matchups were announced, and every fan wanted Lightning. They didn't want the Bruins.
For sure.
I think we
because I think Leaf fans recognize, Bruins are our kryptonite. Clearly.
Oh yeah.
Because I think for me it comes down to more when you look at the other teams, like, and we hear it every year. Oh, the Ottawa Senators, the Buffalo Sabres, and Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah,
they're coming. Leaf fans, they're coming. No, they're not.
Always hear that.
Yep.
Like, we're
every year
closer
from those
to
teams.
those teams than we're closer to Boston in the Cup. We always hear that, but it's been pretty static for the last couple seasons.
Agreed.
And I think I imagine it'll be the same way going into next season. But what do you think? Are you a little worried that we might slip from that top three in the Atlantic?
I think it's still that clear top four. I think Boston, maybe you could argue, has moved ahead of Florida, but I'd have them 1-2. I think you can kind of argue either side. And then I'd probably have us third over Tampa. So I have us firmly in the top four, not so much because I'm that much more confident with the Maple Leafs compared to this past year. It's just the other teams that we called out didn't really do anything. I think the Wings have the best chance of those bottom four to come up and compete for, a playoff spot. But the other three teams are probably at least 2-3 years away.
I looked into some futures odds for who would win the Stanley Cup next year. So maybe we can see what Vegas says about this.
Yep.
Who do you think's favored to win the Cup next season?
Well, I kind of, without knowing this question was coming, I kind of had already looked around, and it seems to be Edmonton on most books are the favorite. Or are you seeing some other team?
I got Florida. I got the Panthers again.
Florida. Okay.
Panthers.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Edmonton.
Excuse me. They're plus 900, tied with another team on DraftKings. So plus 900, for those that don't know, that means if you bet $100, you win $900. So they're actually tied with another team. The team is in the West. It's not Edmonton.
Dallas, Colorado.
Dallas. And then, just like you said, Edmonton is the third in terms of odds, followed by Colorado. So, wow, it's a very West-heavy top four.
Yeah.
And then we've got some metropolitan teams here. The Hurricanes, followed by the Rangers, coming in at number 6. And we got the Devils. Number 7.
I saw them high up there. Yep.
Jeez.
Well, I mean, they have Keith as their coach. He obviously has proven he can win a cup, right?
I don't think they solved that. Wait, did they get a goalie?
They got Jacob Markstrom.
Sorry, I was paying.
Yeah, and they've also done a lot on their defense. I really like their team. I'm not sure I'd put them in my top 4 or 5 cup contenders, but I think they're in the mix. They're definitely in the conversation.
So that's number 7, I think, the Devils. So number 8 is our Toronto Maple Leafs.
Of course.
At plus 1,600 on DraftKings. So if you make $100 bet in the Leafs winning the cup, which is terrible money spent, do not spend that money.
Well, I think every Leaf fan has to do. Every Leaf fan, like, I've pretty much done it every year just to put a future bet on. Yeah. I mean, not big money, but there's no way I can allow myself to be a bystander and not have any money coming my way if and when the Leafs ever win a cup. So I just kind of put that token bet in every year.
Really?
Have to.
Oh, I just think we're
and I know it's a huge donation. I know every year I'm donating. I know that. But I'm okay with that.
I don't know when I watched of course we were watching the first round, and then I'm watching the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm like, holy shit, there's no chance we'd be competing here. Like, we're so far off.
No. Yeah, you just see the gap, right?
The gap, and also
gap.
like the compete level. I see Mark McDavid in the penalty box with his 5-minute major. He's like cussing, like he's boiling. He can't deal with it. If Matthews got that same penalty, he'd be chilling. He'd be chilling in that penalty box. Like,
well, assuming he's even playing, he might say, "You know what? I'm just not feeling it tonight. I'm going to miss game 4
tonight." He's not feeling it tonight. So brutal. I just don't think we have that, unfortunately. And
I don't think it's there. And that's more where I think they need to pivot away and kind of, change up the mix, because it's great adding guys like Chris Tanev, Max Domi last year, and obviously re-sign now. It's great having these guys on the team, but when push comes to shove, you're going to have Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Riley on the ice in every big moment where you need them to want the puck more than the other guy. And I haven't seen that from any of them. I think you can argue Matthews more than the other guys. Yeah. But, he also, he wasn't available pretty much from middle of game 4 up until, obviously return in game 7. But to me, it's like those guys don't show me the same things that McDavid, Draisaitl, Brad Marchand, Pasternak, Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk. It's very different. I've never
seen any of those players you just listed. Let's call them the core 5, including Riley. Like, they don't take accountability for bad play, or they don't actually call it their own mistakes. I don't think as much. Draisaitl, when he was like in his post games, he would be the first to be like, I didn't play well.
Yeah.
Like our small.
There's more of that there.
Like they don't do that. And I think that self-reflection, or that actually, being willing to put yourself down for the sake of the team, is not something that is a quality of those 4, at least. Riley, I think, is a little bit different.
A little bit more so.
Actually, we don't even talk about Tavares these days, but
well, what Tavares always does. I think we learned a valuable lesson tonight. It's like, dude, you've been saying that crap for 5 years. Like, how many more lessons do you need to learn? There's no more learning anymore.
You must be very learned now, John.
Yeah. Now they know what they need to do. Now they know. They know.
Funny.
Is there anything else that we haven't hit on yet that you think we need to cover? Oh, sorry. The one thing, I think it was more Nick Kypreos throwing that out there. The idea of John Tavares potentially handing over the captaincy to Austin Matthews. Yay or nay for you?
I think it's going to happen.
You think it will? Yeah.
I do. What did Kypreos cite his sources?
No, it's just kind of things that he thinks in his head. No, I think he said that he's been hearing rumblings.
I see.
I haven't heard that reported by anybody else, but for the most part, I think Kypreos is pretty trustworthy that he's heard it from someone connected to the organization.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I think maybe there's a better argument to say it should happen. I just don't think it will happen.
Oh, you don't? Okay,
no.
So you're taking the counterpoint. I just think that the media has certainly turned on John in the past season or two.
And the fans too.
And sorry, what?
And the fan base too, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's getting a little
He's too quiet. He's not a captain, is what we hear.
I think he's touted as a dressing room player, but you're right. The fans and the media aren't really seeing those qualities.
No.
And we're not seeing them on the ice either anymore. Like, I think it's sad but true. We're not. And so you're right. I don't think John will do it, but I just think that the right thing to do would be to Austin Matthews.
Time to pass the torch. Yeah, like I think I agree from that perspective. And I guess it just comes down to like how badly does Matthews want it.
Oh, he doesn't.
I don't even know if he does. Like, do you want that extra pressure? Like, do you want that on you? Like, do you want to be like John Tavares? I mean, for all his flaws, which I think he has many in terms of his ability as a leader, like, he's always a guy who comes out, does the media. He's great in the community. He's your, in terms of your prototypical hockey player that's committed. He's always the last guy on the ice in practice. Everyone always raves about his off-season routine, which I
Where
get
are his
it.
flaws then? What are his flaws?
I think just people don't like that he's not vocal enough. He's not an enthusiastic leader. His on ice, you don't see him being a guy who's going to jump into a scrum, shove a guy that's going too close to his goalie. But that's never been his game. Like, I get it. Like, you watch guys like McKinnon, even Barkov, McDavid, captains that obviously had a long playoff runs recently. Sure, I would love Tavares to do even half of the things we see from those guys.
Yeah.
But he's not built that way. I just don't know if, you need to make that move, especially with Tavares having 1 year left. Like, that just, to me, feels like such an insulting thing.
Yeah.
If it's Berube or True Living that says,
I agree.
hey, John, we'd like you to cough up that C. We appreciate what you've done, but can you rip that thing off your jersey? I don't know.
You've actually fully made me do a 360.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah. Like, I'm with you on should. I don't think it will. Because I think there's like too much pride. And you look at what this front office seems to be afraid and fearful of doing. Like, they didn't want to trade anyone from the core. They might still not trade anyone from the core. They just seem to be very careful with kind of any sort of PR potential nightmare, right? Like, if you don't have to rock the boat, don't do it. And I think this is one they're probably avoid. And that's just my thought. I don't think they're going to do it.
Only the Leafs, right? Like, only the Leafs won't rock a boat that needs rocking.
Yeah. Every other team, like, sure. You've Stamkos, you've been here for 15, 16 years. You've won 2 cups. But we need to upgrade or we need to do something different. And then the Leafs, it's like, Mitch Marner, you would prefer to remain here and just keep cashing checks. Okay. Appreciate your consideration. Terrible. Very frustrating.
Thank you, Mitchell. Perfect.
Yeah. I appreciate that you actually, thought about doing it, but you're going to say no. Okay. All right. See you in training camp.
Yeah. We'll be seeing him. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully not, but I think inevitably, unless he kind of comes to them and says, hey, here's a team I'd like to go to. Can you see if you can work on a trade there? It seems like it's going to be a tough move to pull off, but
I think you're right.
We shall see.
You're right. I'd be way more, if it came down to me betting on whether Mitch was going to be with the team come start of regular season or the Leafs are winning the playoffs, I'd put my money on Mitch leaving, but that's still
if you had to put odds, what would be your odds in Mitch Marner is a Leaf on opening night? Opening night.
Oh.
I know, that's a tough one, huh?
I'd say -200.
Ooh, okay. So that's pretty good. That's fairly confident.
Pretty confident. Yeah.
Okay.
I think to our discussions earlier, we would have been hearing more. They would be putting his name out there more. Just in
general. Potentially. But
what are you setting them at?
I think there's a better chance he does get traded before opening night. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like I'm not like putting an 80%, 90% certainty on it. It would be more like a 55, 60% for me that he does get traded.
So you're going like 150, positive 150.
Give or take. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm kind of, I guess, sitting on the fence a little bit, but I do kind of lean more towards the likelihood of him getting traded because I just think they have to, and that might be the delusional element of my fanhood that I feel that Tree Living, Shanahan, Berube, they must, when they're having their conversations, they must recognize that running it back cannot work out well.
Oh, they must.
But-
the Shannon plan failed. It
Right?
failed long ago.
Yeah.
I think,
the verdict is in on that.
And I think to your points earlier, Vegas is clearing cap space. Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson,
Mhm.
you gone. They got
Yep.
space, and they're not.
And they're not going to
anybody-
sit back.
They're not going to lie down and roll over and have that space on their books. They're going to
No.
be players.
Yeah. Well, the other team that, and I don't really put much credibility behind this kind of rumor, but I've been hearing the possibility that's been floated out of a Rangers trade for Mitch Marner with
Wow.
Jacob Trouba
I-
and Alexis Lafreniere coming back the other way. If they
I
can pull that
love-
off, I think you need to, put Brad Treliving's, I know he doesn't have a jersey, but something, his suit, his tie needs to go to the rafters.
Oh my God.
If he can make that happen, I don't see it happening, but that is out there.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
I can't. Right now, I can just picture Trouba being that huge liability for the Rangers in the playoffs. That one game when he got the 3 penalties. But
Well, and the thing I'd be most worried about Trouba, like how many elbows to the head has he done where he either didn't get even a fine or a suspension?
yeah,
When you're wearing a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey, as we know,
yeah,
you don't have to do very much to your opponent to get a suspension.
that's
From
true. And how
Kadri,
many?
Bunting.
Yeah, no, good point. And how many cooks do we want in the kitchen? Like captain cooks. I mean, like Trouba's wearing the C right now. We've got Tavares. We've got Riley, who's never been a C, but could be in that.
Yeah. In
in
A,
that
he's been
category.
considered.
Matthews. Yeah, like I just wonder, would he want to have more of a leadership? Would he want to play more of a leadership role than he would be
Potentially.
given in Toronto?
Potentially.
But oh heck yeah, we want him.
Yeah. Especially
That was good.
young player. I mean, obviously had a great year after kind of being, a lot of people thought he was a bust. He wouldn't ever become anything. That's more why I don't see the Rangers doing it, because would they really look at Mitch Marner? They probably see him as an upgrade right now, but that upgrade is going to cost you a ton more than Lafreniere will. So is that a trade they want to do? Probably not. But
Probably not.
it's,
but
exciting.
we can hope, right?
Totally.
We can hope.
Totally. And as we were saying earlier with Mitch Marner, big market like New York, if that trade is presented to him,
He'd do it.
he'd probably be okay with that. I don't think too many players turn down New York.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
And they're competitive. They'll continue to be competitive for some time.
for sure.
They've got
sure.
arguably the best goal in the league. So
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of keep close to all those rumors and kind of report back anything we're hearing. But yeah, I think we can wrap on that. But want to say thank you to you, Caroline. Great first episode. Thank you for being
thanks so
the
much for having
co-pilot.
me. A lot of fun.
Of course, of course. So again, guys, check her out on TikTok, Caro Toronto. Great content. And our new time, as I mentioned, Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. So we will be doing this all off season. And who knows, if there is a huge trade, we will obviously have to jump on and kind of break it down, give you the recap, and give you our thoughts. So excited to continue to being with you guys and giving you all the news and entertainment with our Maple Leafs.
A lot of fun, Josh. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. We will talk soon. Have a good one.
Bye.
Ciao.